The devourers of worlds didn't know fear. They were born from it. The Vurak horde had culled civilizations like cattle for over 6 millennia. They moved across spiral arms not with diplomacy or ideology, but by the mathematics of extinction. One species after another falling to their claws, never leaving survivors, never hearing mercy. To the wider galaxy they were a living nightmare, relentless, methodical, and monstrously efficient. No treaties. No prisoners. No second chances. They came as a swarm of fangs with neural-linked predators bound to their war nests. They disassembled biospheres. Drank suns dry when it amused them. Killed gods masquerading as ascendant AIs. Every race had a horror story of the Vurak, and none had bested them. But all of that changed the moment they turned their eyes toward the unclaimed blue-green planet in Sector 941, Earth. The Galactic Council warned them. The Kravani offered historical footage. Even the Drisol, the Vurak's hated rivals, sent a rare, pleading transmission. Do not go there. But arrogance ran deeper than instinct in apex predators. Haima Vorix laughed, mandibles clicking with amusement as he watched the ancient human broadcast intercepted through a long-dead relay. It was a grainy recording, a man in armor screaming to hold the line while burning skies collapsed above him. He bled from a dozen wounds and still fought like a cornered god. This species is feral, Vorix said. Uncivilized, his prime strategist hissed. Raw. Savage, said his second-in-command. Perfect, Vorix concluded, a dark glint flashing in his eye clusters. We will consume them and become complete. They began their incursion through the Kuiper Gate, cloaked by solar radiation. Over 600 Predator-class warships moved in silence, dropping warbeasts bred to shred armor with their vocal cords. Vurak Rippers, the size of city buses, dropped into the Amazon first, then the Eurasian steppe, then the ruins of old cities reborn after the climate wars. What they found disturbed them. Dead Rippers. Shredded beyond biological limits. Survivors with data cores melted from exposure to directed microwave pulses. Jungle traps more advanced than any council world permitted under war treaties. Some Rippers were turned, reprogrammed, altered, even tamed. Impossible, Vorix whispered. Nothing tames a Ripper. And then the humans came. Not in fleets. Not in world ships. They came in teams. Two-person squads armed with coil guns, tactical drones, and ancient Terran rage. They didn't fight to win, they fought to annihilate. With traps woven into the land, with whispers in the dark, with ghost signatures designed to lure and butcher. One Vurak battalion captured what they thought was a human girl. A small one, covered in dirt, bleeding from the lip. She said nothing as they dissected her drone pack. They thought she was terrified. They didn't see the tooth she bit into. They didn't hear the frequency she whispered. 7 minutes later, the battalion was gone. Vaporized by an orbital kinetic lance launched from a weapon buried under the Amazon, infrastructure the humans called Project Gorgo. Vorix snarled in rage and ordered a full-scale ground assault. 50,000 Rippers. 8 Hive Lords. 12 planetary burrowers. Plasma fell like rain. Oceans boiled. Cities burned. And then came the blackout. Every Vurak ship lost power. Internal comms died. AI-linked war beasts turned blind. Then a human signal crackled through the static. You hunted the galaxy. You thought no one hunted you. Welcome to Earth Apex. Vorix screamed as his vision darkened. His sensory net ripped apart by a virus that had no code, only instinct. It wasn't digital. It wasn't organic. It was something else. Something human. The Vurak were not just being fought, they were being outpredated. Scouts reported entire units vanishing into forests that shouldn't have been there yesterday. Forests that moved. Urban zones changed overnight, entire cityscapes morphing between surveillance cycles. You are not facing prey, a voice whispered in Vorix's own command den, somehow broadcast without devices. You are facing the children of a death world. In low orbit, the Vurak battle fleet was besieged, not by capital ships but by what they mistook for debris. It wasn't. Human void troopers launched themselves from magnetic slings, no engines, no heat signatures. They used dead satellites to hide approach vectors, then breached Vurak hulls with shape-shifting cutting charges. They are inside us. They are not in armor. They are the armor. Panicked calls flooded the Vurak networks. Entire hive carriers went silent one by one, all across low Earth orbit. The stars blinked behind the fire. Vorix made his last move. He activated the Maw, the Vurak's greatest weapon. A black sun generator. A singularity bomb that, when detonated, would collapse the planet into a neutron shard and wipe all evidence. But as he entered the command codes, the weapon failed to prime. Something was already inside the generator. He turned. A figure stood there. Alone. Unarmored. Scarred. Human. Too late, the figure said. Who are you? Voryx hissed. The man grinned. The reason your nightmares finally have a face. Earth did not fall. The predators who feared nothing had found what they could not conquer. And for the first time in 6 millennia, they ran. The silence between them cracked like thunder. The High Maw Voryx, once an apex of universal dread, stood paralyzed. Not out of physical constraint. His limbs still responded, his senses still flared, but something far more primal now shackled him. The man before him was ordinary by all Vurak standards. Soft, pink-skinned, lacking carapace, antennae, venom sacs, or psionic glands. No armor. No visible weapons. And yet, he had walked into the heart of Voryx's most sacred weapon and disarmed it, without being detected. Explain, Voryx growled, his voice vibrating the walls with guttural subharmonics meant to induce fear. How? The man just smiled. Come. Steady. Eyes too old for his youth. I didn't disarm it, he said. You never had control of it to begin with. Alarms shrieked, but none responded. Vurak guards scrambled through the command corridors, only to find the lights flickering and oxygen thinned. A soft pulse echoed through the ventilation system, a low, bone-deep resonance. It wasn't machinery. It was music. A slow human rhythm. Boom, boom, clap, drums. Marching cadence. Some ancient Terran war chant, sung by voices long dead. But the message was unmistakable. You invaded a war-born world. You stepped onto the hunting ground of your better. And now, the humans were setting the tempo. Voryx lunged. His claws extended with a crack of bone and chitin. A lesser species would have flinched. The human didn't move. He simply sidestepped, 1 inch to the left, and the Maw's claw slammed into the generator core's containment wall with a grinding screech. As the sparks flew, Voryx turned, fangs bared. But the man had already vanished. Not run. Vanished. The predator screamed in primal frustration, his voice echoing through the hollowed belly of his own weapon, which now pulsed not with Vurak might, but with an alien signature buried so deeply it rewrote the very language of the reactor. Earth signal. Impossible, Voryx hissed. This planet had no deep orbit infrastructure. A whisper tickled his audio sensors. No visible infrastructure. We don't advertise our nightmares. Meanwhile, above Earth, the Vurak fleet fragmented. 12 hive carriers went dark within 2 minutes. Not destroyed, claimed. Their command codes overwritten, their systems inverted to speak Terran code. The humans didn't just outfight them, they understood them. Aboard hive carrier Kraskin, General Karvix found herself sealed in her command chamber, watching her own troops turn into something else. The Rippers, once loyal, stood still, awaiting orders not from her, but from uplinked Earthborn command signals. Then she saw it, her neural link, flashing red. Someone else was inside her thoughts. You shouldn't have come. You thought we were just another prey species. Karvix clutched her skull. Get out of my mind. The human voice didn't respond with malice. It didn't need to. It responded with history. Suddenly her vision flooded with Terran archives. War after war, not of conquest but survival. Ice ages endured. Planet-wide famines overcome. Civil wars. Nuclear fire. Genetic collapse. Bioengineered pandemics. Yet they survived. Adapted. Thrived. And now, all that adaptation had found a purpose. Humanity had been preparing for predators their entire existence. Back on Earth, survivors of Vurak landings described horrors beyond any battlefield. They'd seen the shadows of human elite hunters, the gray suits. Invisible to radar, unsensed by pheromonal detection, these operatives could stalk a predator across continents without leaving a single molecule of scent. Some carried relic weapons, monoblade katanas. Others operated combat AIs bred inside quantum anomalies. But none of that scared the Vurak veterans the most. What truly unnerved them was that the gray suits never spoke. No battle cries. No warnings. Not even to each other. They moved like ghosts. And when they struck, it was never once. It was final. Voryx stumbled through the core chamber, light from failing backup systems casting mad shadows. He tried to activate the emergency extraction route. Nothing responded. Instead, a single console flared to life. A text-only screen in Terran Standard. Predator Class Termination Protocol initiated. Target High Maw Voryx. Status locked. Observation complete. Authorization granted. Execute, Y/N. And below that line, the human's voice echoed again. It's not personal, Voryx. We're not your enemies. We're just the first species to look at you and not run. Voryx screamed and tore at the console. Sparks burst into his face, cutting into his mandibles. He struck again, and this time the core floor cracked. Not from damage. From opening. Below, revealed by the collapsing deck, lay something vast and metallic. A dormant Predator-class drone unlike any Vurak had encountered. Slick. Angular. Human. It opened its eyes. Whoa. Cold. Hello, Apex. This is where you die. Across Earth's orbital perimeter, something ancient awoke. Buried beneath Pacific trenches. Hidden inside Arctic caverns. Disguised as extinct satellites orbiting in silent decay. Humanity's real fleet. Not ships of war. Ships of reminders. Each one named after a failure the species had learned from. Chernobyl, Auschwitz, Nagasaki, Atlantis, Columbine, Rwanda, Mars Colony 4. Each one now rising. Silent. Watching. Waiting. The galaxy had misunderstood the humans. They saw them as emotional, chaotic, divided. But they hadn't realized the truth. Every failure had made them stronger. Every wound taught them a new way to survive. Voryx, now impaled and barely breathing, realized it too late. As the generator core began to hum and pulse again, not to detonate but to broadcast, his last thought was not of vengeance, but of confusion. Why didn't the humans kill us outright? The answer came in the final whisper. We wanted one of you to live. To tell the others that Earth is no longer prey. The broadcast began, not with war cries or demands but with truth. A signal burst from Earth's surface, weaving through every layer of electromagnetic interference, cutting across gravity wells, starfield distortions and quantum jamming nets. It bypassed ancient cloaks and blacklisted frequencies. It wasn't meant just for military years. It was meant for everyone. To the species of the known galaxy, this is Earth. This is not a call for peace. This is not a surrender. This is a warning. In the Vurak's home territory on Sarkin Prime, elder broodmothers shivered as the message arrived faster than expected, piercing into their encrypted relay towers. Scholars and generals crowded together in brood halls, mandibles twitching. Predator species across the void paused. Even the Graltharn Imperium, known for turning entire moons into hunting preserves, halted mid-battle. Their queens leaned forward. Their tusked younglings blinked. No species had ever dared transmit like this, not in 1,000 galactic cycles. But Earth had. And what they sent next was a record. A montage of horror played, only it wasn't the humans suffering. It was everything that tried to devour them. The great ice wolves of Europa, extinct. The sky leeches of Venus, vaporized during terraforming. The starborn parasites of Hades cluster, now studied in Terran labs under layers of quantum stasis. Every species that once called itself a predator had been tested against Earth's resolve. And every one had been either annihilated or absorbed. Humanity didn't fight to destroy. They fought to learn. The final scene in the broadcast, a Vurak dreadnought impaled on the spires of Mount Elgon, its corpse now part of Earth's warning beacon array. We have no empire. We have no desire for conquest. But we are done running. We remember our predators. The screen went black. Then it showed just one symbol. A human eye. Watching. Unblinking. Eternal. Back inside the ruined generator core, Voryx clawed at the ground, one arm shredded beyond regeneration. The human hadn't finished him. That was the worst part. He had been spared. The floor beneath him vibrated again. A final platform descended. Not with troops. Not with drones. With a chair. And behind that chair stood her, the same human girl Voryx had watched as a prisoner earlier. The one in chains. The one who didn't flinch when the whips cracked. She was different now. Her hair was tied back with a military ribbon. Her boots were silent as she walked. She carried no weapon. She didn't need one. Voryx tried to rise. Failed. I don't understand, he rasped. Why me? She crouched next to him, eyes calm, studying him like a puzzle she already solved. Because you're not afraid of death, she said. And that makes you useful. Voryx bared his fangs. I'll never be your pet. She nodded. Good. We're not training you. We're training everyone who listens to you. Above Earth, the Vurak fleet, what remained of it, was drifting. Some ships had surrendered before their engines detonated. Others had fled into subspace. But no one had reported back. The dark corridors of Vurak command ships were now filled with whispers, echoes from boarding parties of humans who said nothing, just handed out data. A single file. Locked. Quantum encrypted. Only a Vurak hive core could open it. And when they did, they found their own future autopsy reports. The files detailed every weakness of the Vurak species, every neural trigger, every hormonal imbalance. The data went centuries ahead of Vurak medical understanding. At the bottom of the file, a signature. We studied you before you arrived. And we already prepared your end. Earth Defense Initiative. Galactic predator species had relied on a simple pattern. Hunt, isolate, devour. It worked for eons. But humans weren't designed for that system. They were pack-bound, adaptive, irrational when cornered, and suicidal if necessary. Their history didn't teach survival by submission. It taught evolution through trauma. The Council of Predatory Supremacy, a secret conclave of apex species, called its first emergency meeting in 5,000 years. The opening statement was a question. How do you dominate prey that learns from pain faster than you can inflict it? No one had an answer. The human footage they had intercepted showed Earth cities untouched. Not from defense, but from pre-invasion evacuation drills run for over a century. Their bunkers were deep, their food labs autonomous, and their skies watched by AIs that had studied every form of known cloaking. The predators hadn't ambushed Earth. They'd walked into a controlled trap. Back inside the core chamber, Vorik sat in the chair. He didn't resist. The girl, now recognized as a commander by her ID tag, Amari Lin, Earth Resistance Division 5, placed a recording device on the table between them. She tapped it once. A low chime activated. I want you to talk, she said. And you will. Not because we'll torture you. Not because you fear death. He glared at her. Then why? She leaned closer. Because we already know everything. We just want to hear you say it. So when the next wave comes, they won't believe it's propaganda. They'll believe you. And then she left him there, alone in the silence of his own shame. Back on Vurak Prime, the skies turned gray. 12 dark ships appeared. Not firing. Not broadcasting. Just watching. Each one bore a single marking burned into its hull. Not a crest. Not a flag. A date. The day they landed. The day the predators met the prey and realized too late. Prey doesn't always stay prey. The Vurak skies, once blood orange and boiling with supremacy, dimmed under the shadow of Earth's warships. No guns fired. No ultimatums echoed. Just those 12 ships, watching. Waiting. The Vurak Defense Minister, a being known as Tranvox, activated the planetary-wide threat assessment network. Every defense grid, psychic sensor, quantum probe, all eyes locked onto the ships. Are they not going to attack? One of the generals hissed. No, Tran answered, voice dry. They've already won. Below, thousands of predator hatchlings across Vurak Prime huddled silently in their dens. For the first time in the species' history, children weren't taught to pounce. They weren't trained to claw or rend. They were told to listen. And what they heard was the sound of restraint. Humanity didn't come to exterminate. They came to leave a scar on history so deep no predator would forget. The war of no retaliation. Elsewhere in the galaxy, dozens of predator species convened in fear. Not in war halls or combat arenas, but in temples. In data sanctuaries. In the hollowed skulls of extinct gods they once worshipped. The Skarnic howlers, whose throat fracture roar once burst entire colonies open, issued a signal of surrender to Earth. The Rizari void weavers, whose webs caught suns in orbit, began dismantling their fleet spires before humans ever reached them. Even the cold-blooded monarchs of the Charn Dominion, who believed emotion was rot, began rewriting their war doctrines, because fear was no longer beneath them. On Earth, Commander Amari Lin stood in the remains of a Vurak dreadship impaled in Mount Elgon. The world had changed. The stars were no longer a map of hunting grounds, but markers of resistance. Behind her, hundreds of species, not conquered but survivors, watched her speak across the galaxy. This is not about Earth anymore, she said. This is about every species that bled under your fangs. The footage showed aliens cheering in slums once ruled by predator puppet regimes. Refugees rebuilding from old invasions. Even predator species who dared to defect, began openly denouncing their own empires. And the camera returned to her. We don't need to kill all of you, Amari said. We just need you to remember. She paused. Then added, and if you ever forget again. She glanced skyward. The camera panned with her. Above them, a new ship appeared, massive, alive with glowing veins of antimatter. the Void Fong. One of Earth's oldest hidden weapons. Unseen for decades. Built not for domination, but for final lessons. One final message. On the day the Vurak surrendered, their High Inquisitor broadcasted a short statement across the galaxy, meant for every predator species that still thought humans were prey in disguise. He knelt. He knelt before Earth. Not out of forced subjugation, but in acknowledgement. He raised his claw, placed it on his own throat, and spoke. We taught our young that prey runs, hides, and dies. But humans taught us something else. Prey that survives, learns. Prey that learns, adapts. And prey that adapts, becomes the end of all predators. The feed cut. After the war, humanity never demanded territory. Never installed governors. They left the galaxy with something far more dangerous than fleets. An idea. That fear could end cycles. That evolution didn't belong to the strong, but to the smart. That the true predator was the one who survived everything and chose not to become the monster. And across thousands of star systems, one phrase began replacing ancient war chants. Remember Earth. Not with reverence. With caution. The last scene. A lone Vurak scout ship, decades later, drifting near an asteroid belt. They find a floating buoy. It activates only when approached. The same message plays. We are human. We do not hunt for pleasure. We defend with precision. And we remember those who tried to make us forget who we are. And below it, a final line burned in plasma script. We never needed to become monsters to end you. You've just experienced another tale from the Void narratives. If you felt that shift, the moment the predator flinched and the prey stood tall, then you already understand why this channel exists. Here we tell stories where humanity doesn't just survive. We redefine the stars. Subscribe to the Void narratives now, and join a community that believes. Being underestimated is our weapon. And what comes next is never what they expect. We'll see you in the next story. Subscribe now.